Today's show is brought to you by Audible. Audible is offering our listeners a free audiobook with a 30-day trial membership. Just go to audibletrial.com/thestateofperfectbalance and browse the unmatched selection of audio programs. Download a title for free and start listening today. It's that easy. Go to audibletrial.com/thestateofperfectbalance. Now sit back, relax, and enjoy this week's episode.
This podcast deals with true events of a violent and disturbing nature, intended for a mature audience. Listener discretion is strongly advised.
I want to be alone for a little bit. Trust me, I have a lot of things that I have to take care of. And if we're friends, which we are, okay, then you'll understand it.
I don't think I can do this.
Do what?
This. Us.
What are we doing? I mean, is this normal?
No, I don't know. I don't care. I'm happy. Aren't you happy?
You're happy?
You're not? 1, 2, 3.
I want a divorce.
Hey guys, I'm your host Amanda, and this is The State of Perfect Balance. I want you to think for just a moment about that one terrible breakup. The one that tore your heart up like my little dog Winnie when she gets a hold of a paper napkin. The one that kept you up at night, pacing and talking to yourself, rehashing every part of your time together. The one that really hurt. Remember when you imagined your former partner with someone else? How that made you literally wince with pain and anguish, and probably even anger. When the pain of an ended relationship is raw, and those frayed nerves can stay raw for a very long time, our emotions can get the better of us, and our imaginations can conjure all kinds of stomach-churning scenarios. Actually, those things are all part of the grieving and recovery process, painful as they are. When a person is ready for a romance to end, and the other partner isn't, the person who is not prepared to be alone faces some of life's worst trauma. Slowly, of course, you get better. And one day you're out somewhere and randomly spot the person about whom you once cared so very deeply, and realize they've become someone you don't even know anymore, and you wonder what you ever saw in him or her. Learning about relationships and how all of that works is part of becoming an adult. It's an experience that is common to all of us. And though it may be difficult, most of us emerge with no greater harm than a temporarily broken heart, and we get on with our lives. Jodi Blankenship was ready to move her boyfriend into that used-to-know category after 3 years together. She was young, talented, set to aggressively chase her dreams and date other people. And this is her story. Nelsonville, Ohio is about an hour southeast of Columbus, and its story is pretty typical of that part of the state. It used to be a bustling mining town with coal, clay, and salt coming out of mines in the whole area. Employment was strong. There were hotels and opera houses, businesses. Heck, Willie Nelson, Loretta Lynn, and George Jones performed at the opera house there. There was no reason to expect that would ever change. People will always need to heat their homes, right? They'd always need coal, right? Well, like so many other Appalachian towns, all of that went away. Rocky Shoes and Boots was founded there in the 1930s, but even they moved manufacturing elsewhere years ago. Today, Nelsonville is home to Hocking College, its largest remaining employer. Jodi Marie Blankenship was a student at Hocking College. She knew what she loved to do from a very early age, and that was cooking. I feel ya on that one, Jodi. She was born on January 3rd, 1986, and we can only imagine her parents wondering if she might end up a New Year's Eve baby. She grew up attending Auburn Community Church, where she sped through her confirmation classes and went on to help with Sunday school. The pastor there, Reverend Lang, said Jodi was a real good kid, a real straight arrow, always ready to help out. Jodi graduated from Kinston High School and Auburn Career Center, maintaining a perfect 4.0 average and studying culinary arts. At Hawken College, she majored in hospitality and hotel management. She absolutely loved to cook and began catering events while still a student. At age 19, she took on providing food for a large 75th birthday party for the father of her relative, Patrick Kavanaugh, who was also a township trustee. Jodi did the entire job of catering all the food, he said. That was the kind of kid she was, going above and beyond. She catered the party like an adult, and she was just 19 years old. She was a real go-getter. Mr. Kavanaugh's wife, Ruth, said that Jodi just effervesced. She bubbled. Always. That's the thing people took away from meeting Jodi. She was described by many as a beautiful person who was full of life and as someone who emanated joy, love, and service. She was the daughter every parent would want and the friend everyone would want to have. To keep her career plans moving, Jodi worked at several restaurants in the area, including the Chagrin Valley Athletic Club, Bell's Restaurant in Burton, Mario's Spa in Aurora, and Quaker Square Restaurant in Akron. She was also a clogger with the 4-H and loved line dancing and country music. Like most college students, Jodi Blankenship shared a home with several roommates, including Ronald Hendrickson III, a 21-year-old forestry student, who was her boyfriend and then former boyfriend. They broke things off in February 2007, and by April, Jodi was seeing other people and getting on with things. Living in the same house with your ex is hardly an ideal situation for either person. While Hendrickson may have played it cool, and the two probably tried to make the best of a difficult situation, he was not, apparently, as prepared for the relationship to end, while Jodi was ready to move on, and she was spending time with Dale Weibel, who was 28 years old. It was Wednesday, April 11th, 2007, and Jodi was making plans for the weekend, plans that included Weibel spending at least part of the weekend at the house. Hendrickson became quite upset about this and challenged Jodi. The two argued, and Jodi sought to remove herself from the situation by retreating behind a locked bathroom door. What we know is that Hendrickson cut off electricity to the bathroom, sat outside, and waited for her while the quarrel went on. We know that when she emerged after an hour, Hendrickson stabbed Jodi Blankenship in the neck, arms, and torso 14 times with a small pocket knife. And we know that she died as a result of her injuries before emergency first responders could save her life. But it wasn't as simple as she walked out of the bathroom and he stabbed her. There were a number of questions, chiefly surrounding whether the pocket knife belonged to Jodi or to Ron, and who had possession of that knife when she first came out of the bathroom. And Jodi wasn't the only one to sustain injuries from the knife. There was never any question that Hendrickson had committed the murder. A jury was impaneled to determine just what happened that night and what level of criminality the act of killing Jodi Blankenship rose to. Was it manslaughter, simple murder, or first-degree murder? In other words, was he defending himself, or did he get angry and in a rage kill her? Or, most seriously, did he have ample time and motivation to plan to kill her and carry out that plan? More than a year later, on May 9th, 2008, Hendrickson took the stand in his own defense. He told the jury that the breakup with Jodi Blankenship made him very, very sad and depressed, but said he was moving on with his life and had arranged a date to go mushroom hunting and cave exploring that weekend with another woman. The same evening Jodi Blankenship was killed, Hendrickson had dinner with a young friend named Shaylon Crislip. She testified that Ron was in a good mood and had nothing alcoholic to drink. She confirmed that he had made plans with another woman that weekend. And since he knew that Jodi's new boyfriend would be at the house, he also asked if he could crash at Chris Lip's house rather than at his own apartment, and she agreed. Though he had presented a calm enough exterior to his dinner companion, on the stand, Hendrickson acknowledged that the news of Weibel's coming to stay the weekend made him very upset, and he said, "I tried to make arrangements so I didn't have to meet him at all." These included offering to put Blankenship and Weibel up in a hotel room, he said. He told the court he wanted to be gone from the house that weekend to avoid the possibility of hearing Weibel and Blankenship making lots of noise, having sex above my head. Jodi's bedroom was on the second floor. Unfortunately, Chris Lip, at whose house he was going to sleep that weekend, got several unexpected female guests and the plan fell apart. It just wasn't going to work, he said. So he returned home to the Fort Street house he shared with Jodi. After returning home, he testified he went to Jodi's room to try and work out an arrangement for the weekend and found her on her cell phone with Weibel. Hendrickson claimed he wasn't bothering Jodi, and he testified that at one point she grabbed him and tried to push him out of the room, seeming to indicate to Weibel at the same time that he, Hendrickson, was refusing to leave. Let me just stop here for a moment. Shouldn't Hendrickson have left as soon as he realized she was occupied on the phone with her new boyfriend? Well, he didn't, and unsurprisingly, things went downhill fast. Hendrickson said at this point he and Weibel got into an argument long distance while Jodi held up her cell phone. He said Weibel called him a wimp, a chicken, and a loser, and he, in turn, responded by sharing comments Jodi had supposedly made about his and Weibel's wieners. She said I had a bigger dick than he did, he recounted. Oh my god, men and their penises. Okay. After Jodi locked herself in the bathroom, Hendrickson admitted he shut off the electricity to the room at a breaker box, explaining that Jodi had done this thing to him in the past. By this time, it was nearing 1 a.m, and she was in a very dark bathroom in a dark house with Hendrickson outside the door, refusing to go away. Hendrickson said he sat outside the bathroom waiting for her and may have nodded off until he heard the door open. His version of events was that when he saw Jodi holding up an illuminated cell phone in her right hand with her left hand down at her side, he then heard her say, "I have a knife." And I laughed, he testified. Then I felt a sharp pain in my left side. It shocked me. From that point, Hendrickson claimed what happened was something of a blur. He said he believed he got the small folding knife away from Blankenship but wasn't sure. He talked about pushing Jodi away from him and being terrified that if he fell backward, he would be killed, but never specifically recalled stabbing her. But from earlier testimony, we have some of the story as it unfolded while Jodi was in the bathroom via the text messages she exchanged with Weibel. She complained that Hendrickson wouldn't leave her alone, wouldn't turn the lights on, and wouldn't go away. At one point, Weibel testified he suggested to Jodi that she call the police, and she didn't. Weibel said he believed Jodi was hesitant to call the police because in a previous domestic violence incident in which she hit Hendrickson, police had told her to leave the Fort Street house, forcing her to drive to her family's home in Burton to stay temporarily. Weibel also asked via text message if Jodi thought Hendrickson would harm her, and she replied with, "I'm not sure." You can easily get a sense of the volatile situation that had been escalating since Hendrickson arrived back at the house and went to talk to Jodi about the weekend. Then there was a question of who owned the knife. Neither DNA or fingerprint evidence could clearly show that the knife that killed Jodi belonged to Hendrickson, and he claimed to have given it to her as a gift, a claim supported by his mother, Penny Hendrickson. Now, before we continue on with our story, I want to talk to you about my friends over at Real Life, Real Crime, hosted by Woody Overton. Woody has had a career in law enforcement for years. His cases are unscripted, and he gets the information from the victims, perpetrators, or sometimes both. He's been extremely kind to us here at the State of Perfect Balance, and we love, love, love his show. So I suggest you hop on over to Real Life, Real Crime and give it a listen. But before that, let me introduce you to them.
I'm Woody Overton, host of Real Life, Real Crime, the podcast. Join me each week to hear true and unscripted stories of the cases I actually worked during my career as a major crime investigator in South Louisiana. Go to realliferealcrime.com where you can listen to each week's episodes and find links to our social media. I appreciate y'all, and don't let me catch you down on Murder Bayou.
Hendrickson steadfastly denied having any kind of weapon while sitting outside the bathroom and noted that he was wearing pajamas with no pockets at the time. Athens County Prosecutor C. David Warren clearly tried to suggest that Hendrickson had made an effort to force the door open, showing photos of a bent sliding bolt and cracks around the door frame. Hendrickson said the bolt had been damaged before the night of Jodi's death. Warren also questioned Hendrickson about notes and poems he had written to Jodi before the stabbing. One message talked about loving the Jodi I met and was baptized with, but you have become something totally different, making out with guys you hardly know. Bible verses from 1 Corinthians, which Hendrickson admitted copying and giving to Jodi, warned that the body is not meant for sexual immorality, and that neither the sexually immoral nor adulterers will inherit the kingdom of God. Hendrickson testified that he had copied these to help lift his own spirits after a depressing breakup, then later had given them to Jodi. I wasn't a Christian, but I was trying to become a better person, he said. One poem addressed to Blankenship complained, "You went out to clubs looking for guys, while I stayed at home believing your lies. But you don't care, you just rub it in, showing me pictures of you with other men. Everybody look out. We have a brand new Robert Frost on our hands." I think the notes and poems show us that though Jodi may have tried to maintain some kind of friendship after the breakup, even though that can be tricky, she tried. And Hendrickson was probably just not in a frame of mind to allow such a situation to work. Warren suggested that Hendrickson's claim of Jodi opening a sliding bolt while holding a cell phone in one hand and a knife in the other was implausible. He also questioned whether Hendrickson's 2 small wounds in the left side might have been self-inflicted when he swung the knife at Blankenship from overhead and missed. Perhaps he was cut in the course of struggling. Perhaps while he was busy pushing that small blade into Jodi's body 14 times, he cut himself. In any case, his injuries were cuts and not stab wounds. As the trial wound down, closing arguments by defense attorney Victor A. Hodge reiterated a point he made in his opening statements. The defense isn't denying Hendrickson killed Jodi. Instead, the issues are purpose, prior calculation, and design. Warren argued that the evidence presented made it obvious Hendrickson deliberately set out to kill Jodi after she made clear she planned to have a new boyfriend stay the weekend at the Nelsonville house. He heaped scorn on Hendrickson's own testimony, which he portrayed as implausible, self-contradictory, and a transparent attempt to blame his victim for her own murder. Even after you've heard all this evidence, they continue to blame Jodi, Warren said. It's her fault. It's her fault I stabbed her 14 times. He added, the defendant himself never explicitly admitted this in his own time on the stand, instead suggesting that his memory of the stabbing was a blur. Who is the one person who did not admit that Ronnie killed Jodi? Ronnie himself. He can't remember, Warren said. Going step by step through Hendrickson's testimony, the prosecutor said it was shot full of inconsistencies. His entire story makes no sense, he insisted. For example, Hendrickson claimed to have sat in Blankenship's bedroom before she locked herself in the bathroom, calmly chatting with her as she talked on her cell phone with her new boyfriend. "I wouldn't want any old girlfriend sitting in my room while I was talking to my new girlfriend," he said. He stressed repeatedly Hendrickson's admission that he cut off power to the bathroom at the breaker box, and what Hendrickson said was an attempt to drive Jodi out of the bathroom so he could talk to her. He wasn't wanting to talk. He was stalking her, the prosecutor alleged. He does not want her to have the relationship with her new boyfriend, and he's going to stop it because he's in control. Though Hendrickson claimed he had to wrestle the knife from Blankenship's hand, Warren noted that Hendrickson had no wounds to his hands. So he somehow miraculously got the knife away from Jodi, if you believe his testimony, without even getting so much as a scratch. On paper, these arguments don't sound like the sharpest examples of lawyering from either side. But all that matters is the jury, and it now fell to them to decide. Had Hendrickson lay in wait for Jodi, attacking her as she emerged from the bathroom? Had he been distraught all along and planning to do her harm? Or did she actually introduce the knife first, and he overreacted? On May 12, 2008, the 8-woman, 4-man jury announced it had a verdict at 8:30 p.m. after deliberating for just 8 hours. They found Hendrickson guilty of aggravated murder, the strictest possible verdict. They decided he had planned it. Though prosecutors asked Athens County Common Pleas Judge L. Allen Goldsberry to give the 22-year-old Hendrickson life without the chance of parole, the judge went with something only slightly less harsh. The scene in the packed courtroom was highly emotional, with family members of both Hendrickson and Jodi crying as the verdict and sentence were read aloud. Hendrickson himself took the news with relative composure, first standing to apologize to Jodi's family, then sharing endearments with his own family members. After the verdict had been announced, Blankenship's family stood in court to tell Hendrickson of the pain he had caused them. "Ron, do you realize by taking one person's life how many lives you have destroyed?" demanded Deborah Blankenship. Jodi's father, Rick, told Hendrickson that from the moment he learned his daughter had been killed, "I haven't felt the same since. There's an emptiness I can't ever have words to describe." The prosecutor also showed a brief video found on Jodi Blankenship's online social networking page, which is apparently a clip of her giving a short speech in a college class. In it, she speaks about her fear of public speaking and encourages others they can overcome their fears too. Hendrickson himself rose to speak before sentencing, saying, "First, I'd like to apologize to the family for causing your daughter's death, and say I'm sorry to my family for putting you through this." His mother, sitting in the front row of the courtroom with his father and brother, replied, "You have nothing to be sorry for." Hendrickson was sentenced to life in prison with the possibility of parole after 30 years, in 2038, when he is just 52 years old. This is the second harshest sentence Ohio law allows for his offense. Breakups are tough and fraught with high emotion. After all, love is a high-flying thing in our lives, and when we're floating on all those pleasant hormones and dreaming big fantasies for the future, it only makes sense that the fall from such a dizzying high will cause immense pain, anguish, and sometimes extreme anger. Both sides are wise to tread lightly and realize that such extreme emotions can manifest themselves in a violent way. I think Jodi Blankenship was a young woman who was pretty certain of what she wanted to do with her life and had a plan for making it happen. Relationships in those late teens, early 20 years are learning experiences, trying on situations and people, and there are going to be mistakes and people are going to get hurt. To pay for such a normal experience at the beginning of adulthood with your life is grossly unfair. In learning about Jodi, we found plenty of people with good memories and glowing things to say about this young woman. She will always be loved and always be remembered. Thank you for listening to episode 19 of The State of Perfect Balance. You can follow us on Instagram at The State of Perfect Balance Pod and Twitter at State Perfect. Check out our website at thestateofperfectbalance.com. We bring you new episodes every other Sunday night with solved and unsolved murders in the smallest towns across Ohio. And remember, lock your doors. Evil lives everywhere. Not all small towns are safe.